Captain Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the alien ruins spread across the planet's surface. The place looked dead. Nothing had lived here for thousands of years, maybe longer. His ship, Terra's Hope, sat quietly. Behind him on the landing pad they had cleared 3 days ago, the planet Kepler 442b was supposed to be empty. Earth's long-range scanners had shown no life, no cities, nothing interesting. But when they got closer, they found something strange. Massive stone buildings covered in metal that didn't rust. Towers that reached toward the sky like fingers. And symbols carved into everything. Dr. Lisa Cameron knelt beside a broken wall, running her gloved hands over the strange markings. She was the team's expert on alien archaeology. If anyone could figure out what this place was, it would be her. These symbols are different from anything we've seen before, she said without looking up. They're not like the Zephyrian writing No, this is something else, something older. Commander Ryan Burke stood nearby, his rifle ready. He was the team's military specialist, and he didn't like being on unknown planets. Too many things could go wrong. How much older? He asked. Maybe 10,000 years, maybe more. Lisa stood up and brushed dust off her knees. The Zephyrians told us they were the first species to build cities and travel between stars, but these ruins are older than their oldest records. Lieutenant Amy Foster adjusted her communication equipment. She was responsible for keeping them in contact with Earth. Should I report this to Admiral Collins? Jake thought about it. The Zephyrians had been very specific about which planets humans could visit. They said it was for safety reasons. Some worlds had dangerous radiation. Others had hostile life forms. But this planet was supposed to be empty and safe. Not yet, Jake decided. Let's see what else we can find first. They spent the morning exploring the ruins. The buildings were huge, much bigger than anything humans had built. Some had rooms large enough to hold a football stadium. Others had ceilings so high they disappeared into darkness. Lisa found more symbols everywhere. On walls, on floors, even carved into the metal supports. She took pictures of everything, but she couldn't read any of it. The language was completely unknown. Around noon, they found something unusual. In the center of the largest building, there was a room with no dust. Everything else on the planet was covered in thousands of years of dirt and sand. But this room was clean. In the middle of the room sat a black cube about the size of a car. It was perfectly smooth except for a small panel on one side. The panel had symbols that glowed with a soft blue light. It's still active, Lisa whispered. After all these years, it's still working. Ryan raised his rifle. Could be a weapon or a computer, Lisa said. She approached the cube slowly. If it wanted to hurt us, it would have done it already. Jake watched her carefully. Can you read the symbols? Some of them. They're similar to old Zephyrian, but different enough that I'm having trouble. She touched the glowing panel gently. The cube made a soft humming sound. The blue light grew brighter. Then the air above the cube began to shimmer, and suddenly there were images floating in the space above it. Amy dropped her communication device. What is that? The images were moving pictures, like a movie playing in the air. They showed aliens that none of them had ever seen before. Tall, thin creatures with 4 arms and large heads. They were building cities, traveling between stars, creating art and music. But then the images changed. New aliens appeared. These ones looked like the Zephyrians humans knew. They had the same gray skin, the same black eyes, the same thin bodies. But they weren't acting like the peaceful traders that Earth knew, the Zephyrians. In the images were attacking the 4-armed aliens. They were capturing them, putting them in cages, connecting strange machines to their heads. The 4-armed aliens screamed silently in the floating pictures. This can't be right, Amy said. The Zephyrians are peaceful. They've never hurt anyone. Lisa touched the panel again. More images appeared, different aliens this time. Creatures that looked like giant insects. The same thing happened to them. The Zephyrians came, captured them, and connected machines to their heads. The pattern repeated over and over. Dozens of different alien species. All of them advanced, all of them intelligent, all of them destroyed by the Zephyrians. Jake felt cold despite the warm air. How long has this been going on? Lisa studied the symbols beneath the images. According to this, over 50,000 years. The Zephyrians have been doing this for 50,000 years. More images appeared. These showed the inside of Zephyrian facilities. The captured aliens were connected to large machines by cables that went into their heads. The aliens looked dead, but the machines were active. Information flowed from the alien minds into Zephyrian computers. They're stealing their knowledge, Lisa said quietly. Everything the captured species knew. Their science, their art, their technology, the Zephyrians are taking it all. Ryan lowered his rifle. That's impossible. The Zephyrians invented faster than light. Travel. They created the Galactic Communication Network. They built the space stations we trade on. No, Lisa said, pointing at the images. They stole all of it, look. The pictures showed Zephyrian engineers studying alien technology. They would examine captured devices, copy them exactly, then claim they had invented them. Every piece of Zephyrian technology in the images had originally belonged to someone else. Amy picked up her communication device with shaking hands. We have to tell Earth about this. Wait, Jake said, there's more? The final images were the most disturbing. They showed recent events, planets that looked familiar, space stations that Jake recognized, and humans. Humans talking with Zephyrians, trading with them, sharing technology with them. The last image showed a Zephyrian facility hidden inside one of their trade stations. Human prisoners were connected to the same kind of machines that had been used on all the other species. The cube went dark. The room fell silent except for the sound of their breathing. Lisa looked at the others with wide eyes. They're already starting to harvest us. The Zephyrians have been studying humans for months, maybe years. Everything they told us about peaceful. Contact and trade was a lie. Jake felt his hands shaking. How many humans do they have? I don't know. But if the pattern holds, we don't have much time. Lisa touched the cube again, but nothing happened. According to these records, every species the Zephyrians contacted was extinct within 100 years. Amy's voice was barely a whisper. We have to warn Earth. Jake nodded, but his mind was racing. The Zephyrians controlled the galactic communication network. They monitored all messages between Earth and human colonies. If they sent a warning, the Zephyrians would know that humans had discovered the truth, and if that happened, the harvest would begin immediately. We can't use normal communications. He said, we need to get back to Earth ourselves. We need to tell them in person. Ryan was already moving toward the exit. How long will it take? 3 weeks if we push the engines hard, Jake said. Let's hope that's fast enough. As they left the ruins behind, none of them noticed the small device hidden in the rocks nearby. It had been recording everything they said and done, and in a few hours that recording would be transmitted across the galaxy to a very interested audience. The Terra's Hope landed on Earth 3 weeks later. Jake Morrison had pushed the ship's engines harder than ever before. They had barely made it home without breaking down completely. But they had made it, and that was all that mattered. Admiral. Patricia Collins was waiting for them at the landing pad. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been in charge of Earth's space defense for 20 years. If anyone would know what to do with their discovery, it would be her. Captain Morrison, she said as Jake walked down the ship's ramp, your message said this was urgent. What did you find out there? Jake looked around nervously. There were too many people nearby. Maintenance workers, other ship crews, security guards, any of them could be listening. We need to talk somewhere private, somewhere the Zephyrians can't hear us. The Admiral's eyes narrowed. Follow me. She led them to a secure room deep inside the military complex. The walls were lined with metal that blocked all electronic signals. No communications could get in or out. It was the safest place on Earth to share secrets. Dr. Lisa. Cameron connected her portable computer to the room's display screen. What? We found changes everything we know about the galaxy, she said. The Zephyrians have been lying to us since first contact. For the next hour they showed Admiral Collins everything. The ancient ruins, the black cube, the images of 50,000 years of slavery and murder. The Admiral watched without saying a word. Her face grew paler with each new piece of evidence. When they finished, she sat quietly for several minutes. Finally, she spoke. "Are you certain this information is accurate?" "The technology was real," Lisa said. "The cube had been working for thousands of years. The images weren't fake. They were historical records." Admiral Collins pressed a button on the table. "Send Kevin Grant to this room immediately. High priority." Kevin. Grant arrived 10 minutes later. He was the military's best intelligence analyst. If there were patterns to find, he would find them. He was a thin man with thick glasses who spent most of his time staring at computer screens. "Kevin," the Admiral said, "I need you to look at something. And I need you to keep your mouth shut about it." She had Lisa show Kevin the images from the alien cube. She told him about the pattern of contact, study, and harvest that the Zephyrians had used for thousands of years. Kevin watched everything twice. Then he opened his laptop and began typing quickly. "Give me access to our diplomatic records," he said. "Everything we have about Zephyrian contact with other species." The Admiral gave him the access codes. Kevin worked for 2 hours while the others waited. He pulled up files, cross-referenced data, and made charts on his computer screen. Finally, he looked up. "The pattern is real," he said quietly, "and it's happening right now." He turned his laptop around so they could see the screen. "Look at this. The Zephyrians made contact with the Centauri colonies 18 months ago. They offered trade agreements and technology exchanges. 6 months later, 3 Centauri research stations went silent. The Zephyrians said it was equipment failures." Jake felt his stomach drop. "How many people were on those stations?" 2,000. All scientists and researchers. The Zephyrians offered to help with rescue operations, but they said the stations were too damaged to save anyone. Kevin pulled up more files. The same thing happened with the Mars mining operation. First contact, trade agreements, then sudden disasters. Always with the Zephyrians offering to help clean up. Lisa leaned forward. "Those weren't disasters. Those were harvest operations. It gets worse," Kevin continued. "I found records of memory problems among our diplomats. Everyone who has spent time in Zephyrian facilities has reported strange symptoms. Memory gaps, difficulty concentrating, loss of creativity." Admiral Collins stood up and began pacing. "How many of our people have been exposed?" "At least 500, maybe more. Ambassador Johnson has been working with the Zephyrians for 8 months. He's shown the most severe symptoms. His staff says he's like a different person." Jake remembered the images from the cube. The aliens connected to machines, their minds being drained away. "We need to get our people away from the Zephyrians immediately." "We can't," the Admiral said. "If we suddenly pull back from all contact, they'll know we've discovered something. That might trigger an immediate harvest." Kevin pulled up another file. "There's something else. Dr. Rachel Torres in the linguistics department has been studying the Zephyrian language. She's found some disturbing things." The Admiral pressed another button. "Get Dr. Torres down here now." Dr. Rachel Torres was a small woman with dark hair who spoke 12 human languages fluently. She had been working on Zephyrian translation for the past year. When she arrived, she looked nervous. "Dr. Torres," Admiral Collins said, "tell us about your language research." Rachel opened a folder full of notes. "The Zephyrian language is strange," she said. "It doesn't follow normal linguistic patterns. Most languages develop naturally over thousands of years. They have irregularities, historical changes, cultural influences, but Zephyrian is too perfect." She showed them examples of Zephyrian writing. It's like they designed it artificially. "And there's something else. The translation devices they gave us aren't just translating words. They're scanning our brain patterns while we use them." Lisa felt cold. "What kind of scanning?" "Neural mapping. They're learning how humans think, how we process language, how our minds work. Every conversation with a Zephyrian teaches them more about human consciousness." Jake thought about all the human diplomats who had been using Zephyrian translation devices for months. "They're preparing to harvest us. They need to understand how our minds work before they can steal our knowledge. Admiral Collins sat down heavily. How long do we have? Kevin checked his computer. Based on the historical pattern, they usually begin full harvest operations within 2 years of first contact. We've been in contact for 14 months. 10 months, Rachel said quietly. Maybe less if they've learned enough about us already. The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking the same thing. Humanity had been marked for extinction, and they were running out of time. We need more information, Admiral Collins said finally. Kevin, I want you to analyze every piece of data we have about Zephyrian facilities on Earth. Look for anything suspicious. Hidden rooms, unexplained energy usage, anything. What about our people who are already showing symptoms? Jake asked. We'll have to help them quietly. Medical treatment that looks like routine care? We can't let the Zephyrians know we're suspicious. Lisa closed her laptop. There's one more thing. In the images from the cube, I saw something important. Every species the Zephyrians harvested was completely destroyed, but there were references to survivors. Small groups that escaped and went into hiding. Where? Admiral Collins asked. The outer rim of the galaxy? Places too dangerous or remote for the Zephyrians to bother with. If we can find these survivors, maybe they can help us fight back. Jake nodded. The Zephyrians have been successful. For 50,000 years because no one ever expected their attacks, but now we know what they really are. Admiral Collins stood up. This conversation never happened. Everyone in this room is now part of a classified operation. We're going to prepare Earth's defenses, but we have to be careful. One wrong move and they'll harvest every human in the galaxy. As they left the secure room, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were already being watched. The Zephyrians had been planning humanity's destruction for over a year. But now, humans knew the truth. The question was whether they could do anything about it before it was too late. Dr. Lisa Cameron couldn't sleep. For 3 days, she had been studying the data from the alien cube, trying to understand something that bothered her. Why had humans been the first species to discover the truth about the Zephyrians? She sat in her lab at 2 a.m, drinking her 5th cup of coffee. Her research partner, Dr. Paul Henderson, was asleep at his desk. Paul was a brain scientist who studied how humans think and learn. Together, they were trying to solve a puzzle that could save their species. Paul, she said, shaking his shoulder. Gently. Wake up. I think I found something. Paul lifted his head and rubbed his eyes. What time is it? Late, but this is important. Lisa pointed at her computer screen. Look at this data from the cube. Every species the Zephyrians harvested was completely destroyed. Their minds were drained, their knowledge stolen, their cultures erased. But humans are different. Paul sat up straighter. Different how? Remember the reports about our diplomats? They showed symptoms of neural drain, but they didn't lose everything. Ambassador Johnson forgot some things, but he still remembered his family. He lost creativity, but he could still do basic tasks. The other species lost everything immediately. Paul moved to his own computer. Show me the brain scans from the affected humans. Lisa transferred the medical files. Paul studied them for several minutes, comparing them to normal human brain patterns. His eyes grew wide as he realized what he was seeing. This is incredible, he said. The Zephyrian neural drain technology isn't working properly on humans. Look at these patterns. He pointed to areas of brain activity on the scans. Human consciousness doesn't work like other species. We're more chaotic, more unpredictable. When the Zephyrians try to drain our minds, human thoughts scatter in random directions. Lisa leaned over his shoulder. What does that mean? It means they can't steal our knowledge completely. Human minds are too messy, too emotional. We think with our hearts as much as our heads. The Zephyrian technology is designed for logical, organized minds, but humans aren't logical. Paul pulled up more data. Look at this. Humans are the only species that dreams randomly, that makes decisions based on feelings, that creates art for no practical reason. The Zephyrians can't understand that kind of thinking. Lisa felt excitement building. So when they try to harvest, Human minds. They get fragments, pieces, but they can't put it all together because human consciousness doesn't work in straight lines. We jump from thought to thought, mix logic with emotion, remember things in the wrong order. Paul opened another file. There's more. Human paranoia actually protects us. Other species trusted the Zephyrians because they seemed advanced and peaceful. But humans always suspect hidden motives. That's why you found the truth on that planet. A more trusting species would have accepted the Zephyrian explanation and never looked deeper. Lisa remembered how suspicious Commander Ryan Burke had been during their mission. How carefully Jake Morrison had planned their communications to avoid detection. Human distrust saved us. Not just distrust. Human curiosity, human stubbornness, human refusal to accept simple answers. These are all things other species might consider flaws. But they're what made humans resistant to Zephyrian control. They worked through the night, analyzing the differences between human brain patterns and the patterns of harvested species. As the sun rose, they had their answer. Dr. Henderson called Admiral Collins. We need to meet immediately. We found something that changes everything. 2 hours later, they sat in the same secure room where they had first shared the discovery. Admiral Collins, Jake Morrison, Kevin Grant, and Dr. Rachel Torres listened as Paul explained their findings. Humans have natural immunity to Zephyrian neural harvesting, he said. Not complete immunity, but enough to disrupt their process. Human emotional thinking creates what we're calling neural static. Admiral Collins leaned forward. Explain that in simple terms. Lisa took over. Human minds work differently than any other species. We're emotional, irrational, unpredictable. The Zephyrians built their harvesting technology to steal knowledge from logical, organized minds. But human consciousness is chaotic. When they try to drain human knowledge, Paul continued, they get scrambled data. Imagine trying to download a computer file, but the file keeps changing and moving around. That's what happens when Zephyrians try to harvest human minds. Jake felt hope for the first time in days. So they can't harvest us? They can hurt us. Paul said they can cause memory loss and mental damage, but they can't steal our knowledge cleanly. And more importantly, they can't understand how we think. Kevin opened his laptop. I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications since our last meeting. They're having problems with their human research. Their reports mention unexpected variables and unstable data patterns. Dr. Torres added her own findings. The translation. Devices they gave us were supposed to map human language patterns. But human language is too complex, too full of hidden meanings and emotional context. Their devices keep malfunctioning. Admiral Collins stood up and began pacing. This is useful information. But how does it help us fight them? Paul smiled for the first time in days. We can build technology that enhances human neural chaos. Make ourselves even more resistant to their harvesting. And more importantly, we can create weapons and defenses that work on human emotional logic instead of pure rational thought. Lisa nodded enthusiastically. The Zephyrians have been successful because they can predict and counter logical strategies. But they can't predict human irrationality. They can't understand decisions based on courage, love, or pure stubbornness. There's something else, Kevin said. I've been analyzing Zephyrian tactical reports from their previous harvests. They always use the same strategies, the same approaches. They've been successful for so long that they've become rigid in their thinking. But humans improvise, Jake said, understanding where this was leading. We change tactics in the middle of battle. We make decisions that don't make logical sense. Admiral Collins stopped pacing. So you're telling me that everything that makes humans difficult to deal with, everything that other species might consider weaknesses, these are actually our advantages against the Zephyrians. Exactly, Paul said. Human paranoia, human emotional decision-making, human creativity, human refusal to follow rules. These are all things that the Zephyrians can't counter because they've never encountered them before. Lisa pulled up the images from the alien cube. Look at all these harvested species. They were all logical, organized, predictable. They built efficient societies, made rational decisions, followed clear hierarchies. That's exactly what made them vulnerable. But humans are messy, Jake said. We argue with authority, we make emotional choices, we create art that serves no practical purpose. We're the opposite of what the Zephyrians expect. Dr. Torres looked at her translation notes. This explains why their language technology doesn't work on us. Human communication isn't just about transferring information. We use sarcasm, metaphors, cultural references, emotional undertones. The Zephyrians can't process that level of complexity. Admiral Collins sat down again. How quickly can we develop technology based on these principles? Paul and Lisa exchanged glances. Give us 2 weeks, Paul said. We can create neural amplifiers that make human thinking even more chaotic and unpredictable. And we can design defensive systems based on human intuition rather than logic. What about weapons? The Admiral asked. Human weapons are already superior, Jake said. The Zephyrians use technology they stole from logical species. But human weapons are designed for chaotic combat, for situations where nothing goes according to plan. Kevin closed his laptop. There's one more advantage we have. The Zephyrians think they understand humans based on their incomplete harvesting attempts. They think we're just another logical species with some minor variations. They have no idea how different we really are. Admiral Collins nodded slowly. So we let them keep thinking that. We prepare our defenses in secret using human unpredictability as our primary weapon. The element of surprise won't last long, Lisa warned. Once we start fighting back, they'll realize their mistake. Then we better make our first strike count, the Admiral said. And we better hope that 50,000 years of easy victories has made the Zephyrians weak. As the meeting ended, Jake felt something he hadn't expected, pride, for the first time. In human history, all the things that made humans difficult, stubborn, and unpredictable were exactly what the galaxy needed. The Zephyrians had dominated the galaxy by harvesting logical, predictable species. But they had never encountered anything like humanity, and that was going to be their downfall. 2 weeks later, the first neural dampening devices were ready. They looked like simple headbands, but inside each one was technology that no other species had ever imagined. The devices amplified human emotional thinking and made their minds completely invisible to Zephyrian scanning. Dr. Paul Henderson tested the first prototype on himself. He sat in his lab wearing the headband while Dr. Lisa Cameron operated a modified Zephyrian scanner that they had stolen from the embassy. I can't detect anything, Lisa said, staring at her screen in amazement. According to this scanner, you don't have a mind at all. Paul grinned. How does it feel? Like my thoughts are moving faster, jumping around more. I keep thinking about random memories and getting distracted by emotions. It's like the device is making me more human. Admiral Collins had authorized a secret operation called Mindbreak. Only a few dozen people knew about it, and they were the most trusted officers in Earth's military. Captain Jake Morrison was put in charge of preparing Earth's space fleet for combat. Jake stood in the shipyard, watching engineers install the new neural dampening technology on every human vessel. The ships looked the same from the outside, but inside they were now protected from Zephyrian mental attacks. Commander Ryan Burke approached with a tablet full of reports. The weapon tests are going well, he said. The Zephyrians can't predict our new combat tactics at all. What kind of tactics? Jake asked. Ryan smiled grimly. Human tactics. Chaos, improvisation, emotional decision-making. We programmed our combat computers to make choices based on gut feelings instead of pure logic. The Zephyrian simulations can't handle it, Jake nodded. The new weapons were based on human unpredictability. Instead of following logical targeting patterns, they changed direction randomly. Instead of using efficient energy distribution, they wasted power in ways that confused enemy sensors. They were deliberately irrational, and that made them impossible for the Zephyrians to counter. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster was working on the most important part of the plan. She sat in a communication center surrounded by artists, musicians, and writers. Together, they were building something the galaxy had never seen before. The network is almost ready, Amy announced to Admiral Collins during their daily briefing. "We're calling it the Harmony Protocol." "Explain how it works," the Admiral said. Amy pulled up a diagram on her screen. "Normal galactic communication. Uses logical data transmission. Numbers, codes, direct information transfer. Zephyrians can intercept and decode all of that, but the Harmony Protocol uses human artistic expression." She showed them examples. "We embed our messages in music, poetry, paintings, and stories. Each piece of art contains tactical information, but only humans can understand the emotional context needed to decode it. Dr. Rachel Torres had helped design the artistic codes. We use cultural references that only humans know, emotional metaphors that require human experience to understand, and creative patterns that emerge from human chaos rather than logical planning. The Zephyrians intercept our transmissions," Amy continued, "but all they hear is human art. They can't decode the hidden information because they don't understand human creativity." Admiral Collins looked impressed. "Have you tested it?" "We sent our first coded message to the Mars colonies yesterday. A song about missing home that actually contained fleet movement orders. The Mars commanders decoded it perfectly, but when we ran it through Zephyrian translation systems, they detected no military content at all." While Earth prepared its defenses, Jake Morrison led a secret mission to the outer rim of the galaxy. His ship, Terra's Hope, had been upgraded with the most advanced neural dampening technology available. He was searching for the survivors that Lisa had mentioned, the species that had escaped Zephyrian harvesting. The first survivors they found were hiding in a nebula that interfered with most scanning technology. They called themselves the Echoing Void, and they had once been a single organism with millions of connected minds. The Zephyrians had tried to harvest them 3,000 years ago. "You are the first species to contact us willingly," the Echoing Void said through their translator. "All others came as Zephyrian slaves or fled in terror." Jake explained humanity's situation and their discovery about Zephyrian harvesting. The Echoing Void listened with growing excitement. "You resist their neural feeding?" they asked. "This is unprecedented. We survived by fragmenting our collective mind, but we could never resist their technology directly." "We're not just resisting," Jake said. "We're planning to fight back. Will you help us?" The Echoing Void was quiet for several minutes. When they spoke again, their voice was filled with hope. "We have waited 3,000 years for someone to challenge the Zephyrian Empire. Yes, we will help." The second group of survivors was even more unusual. They were crystalline beings called the Harmony 7 who had hidden themselves inside an asteroid field. Their bodies were made of living crystal that could store and transmit information at incredible speeds. "The flesh stealers have ruled too long," Harmony 7 said when Jake explained the situation. "We have preserved the knowledge of 47 destroyed species, waiting for the day when someone could use it against our enemies." Jake felt excitement building. What kind of knowledge? Weapons, defenses, tactics, everything the Zephyrians stole and thought was lost forever. "We have kept it safe in our crystal matrices." Back on Earth, engineer Carlos Rodriguez was working with the alien knowledge provided by the survivors. He was designing weapons and defenses that the Zephyrians had never encountered before. "The trick is to combine alien technology with human unpredictability," Carlos explained to Admiral Collins. "The Zephyrians know how to counter the original alien weapons because they studied them for thousands of years. But they don't know how to counter weapons that have been modified by human chaos." He showed her his latest creation. "This is a shield generator based on Echoing Void technology, but modified to respond to human emotional states. When the operator feels afraid, it becomes stronger. When they feel angry, it becomes more aggressive. The Zephyrians can't predict how it will behave because it changes based on human feelings." Dr. Torres was also working with the survivor knowledge. She had learned to communicate directly with the Echoing Void and Harmony 7, bypassing Zephyrian translation technology entirely. "We're building a resistance network," she told the Admiral. "There are survivor groups throughout the galaxy. Most of them have been hiding for thousands of years, but they're willing to fight if they have a chance to win. The network grew quickly. Amy Foster's Harmony Protocol allowed the survivors to communicate safely for the first time in millennia. Hidden bases throughout the galaxy began sharing information, coordinating attacks and preparing for war, but the Zephyrians were starting to notice problems. Kevin Grant intercepted their communications and found disturbing reports. They know. Something is wrong, he told Admiral Collins. Their harvest operations on the outer colonies have been failing. Too many humans are showing resistance to their neural drain technology. How long before they realize what's happening? The Admiral asked. Maybe weeks, maybe days. They're starting to increase security around their facilities. And they're moving up their timeline for full harvest operations. Jake Morrison returned from his mission to the Outer Rim with troubling news. The survivors say the Zephyrians always accelerate their harvesting when they encounter resistance. If they think humans are becoming a threat, they'll try to destroy Earth immediately. Admiral Collins looked at the reports scattered across her desk. Humanity had made incredible progress in just a few weeks. They had developed new technology, built a galactic resistance network, and discovered advantages they never knew they possessed, but time was running out. How ready are we? She asked. Jake checked his tactical reports. Our fleet is equipped with neural dampening and human chaos weapons. The resistance network is in place. We have survivor allies throughout the galaxy, but are we ready to win? Admiral Collins pressed. Jake thought about everything they had learned. Human unpredictability, emotional decision-making, and chaotic thinking had given them advantages no other species possessed. The survivors had provided knowledge and technology that had been thought lost forever. I think so, he said finally. The Zephyrians have been successful for 50,000 years because they've never faced anything like humanity. They've never fought an enemy that turns weaknesses into strengths. Admiral Collins stood up. Then we're going to find out just how strong human chaos really is. The war for the galaxy was about to begin. The alarm sounded at 3 a.m. Captain Jake Morrison jumped out of bed and ran to the command center. Admiral Patricia Collins was already there, staring at screens filled with incoming reports. They're moving, she said without looking. Away from the displays. Zephyrian fleets are heading toward Earth and all human colonies simultaneously. The full harvest has begun. Jake felt his stomach drop. How long do we have? 6 hours before the first ships reach Earth. 12 hours. Before they hit the outer colonies. Kevin Grant burst into the room carrying his laptop. I intercepted their battle plans. They're not taking any chances this time? They're bringing enough firepower to destroy every human settlement in the galaxy. Admiral Collins activated the emergency communication system. All units, this is Admiral Collins. Operation Mindbreak is now active. Repeat, Operation Mindbreak is active. Across the galaxy, the resistance network came alive. Amy Foster's Harmony Protocol began transmitting coded messages through music and art to any Zephyrian listening. It sounded like humans sharing cultural entertainment during a crisis. In reality, it was coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Jake ran to his ship, Terra's Hope. His crew was already preparing for launch. Commander Ryan Burke was loading the new Chaos weapons, while Dr. Lisa Cameron made final adjustments to their neural dampening systems. Are you ready for this? Jake asked Ryan as they lifted off from Earth. Ryan grinned. I've been ready to fight these monsters since we found out what they really are. The first Zephyrian ships appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system exactly 6 hours later. They were massive vessels, each one large enough to hold a small city. There were dozens of them, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. Admiral Collins watched from the planet's defense center as the human fleet moved to intercept them. The human ships were smaller, fewer in number, and less advanced. By every logical measure, humanity should have been destroyed in minutes. But the battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrian ships attacked with precise, calculated strikes. Their weapons targeted the most efficient points on human vessels. Their movements followed perfect tactical patterns that had been successful for 50,000 years. The human ships responded with complete chaos. Captain. Morrison's ship suddenly accelerated directly toward the largest Zephyrian vessel, ignoring three closer targets. Commander Burke fired weapons in random directions, hitting enemies that weren't even threatening them. Other human pilots made decisions that seemed completely insane, and it worked. The Zephyrian battle computers couldn't predict human actions because human actions didn't follow logical patterns. Zephyrian captains expected humans to retreat when outnumbered, but humans attacked instead. They expected humans to protect their most valuable ships, but humans used them as weapons. Dr. Paul Henderson monitored the battle from Earth's surface. His neural dampening technology was working perfectly. The Zephyrian battle reports are full of confusion, he told Admiral Collins. They keep saying our tactics make no sense. That's the point, the Admiral replied, but the real surprise came when the resistance network activated across the galaxy. For thousands of years, the Zephyrians had believed they were the only advanced civilization left. Suddenly, their facilities were under attack by species they thought were extinct. The echoing void emerged from their hidden nebula with ships that moved like living creatures. The Harmony 7 attacked with weapons made of crystallized starlight. Dozens of other survivor species revealed themselves, each one carrying thousands of years of anger and a desperate desire for revenge. The neural dampening technology spread like a virus through the galaxy. Amy Foster's Harmony Protocol transmitted the technical specifications disguised as human songs and poems. Every species that received the information could build their own neural dampeners, freeing themselves from Zephyrian mental control. On Zephyrian slave worlds, billions of beings suddenly remembered who they really were. The mental barriers that had kept them obedient for generations disappeared in moments. Slave revolts began on every planet the Zephyrians controlled. Jake Morrison led the human fleet toward the Zephyrian homeworld, a massive artificial construct at the center of the galaxy. It was built from the remains of 1,000 harvested civilizations, a monument to 50,000 years of genocide. The Zephyrian Emperor waited for them there. It was an ancient artificial intelligence created from the combined minds of billions of harvested beings. For millennia, it had directed the systematic destruction of every advanced species in the galaxy, but now it was facing something it had never encountered before. Species that fought back, technology it couldn't understand, and humans whose minds it couldn't fully read or predict. Surrender? The Emperor broadcast to the human fleet as they approached. You cannot win. We have harvested 1,000 species. We will harvest yours as well. Jake Morrison activated his communication system. His response was transmitted across the galaxy through the Harmony Protocol, heard by every survivor, every freed slave, every being that had suffered under Zephyrian rule. We're not like the others, he said simply. We're human. And humans don't surrender. The final battle lasted 18 hours. The Zephyrian homeworld's defenses were powered by the stolen technology of 1,000 civilizations. But those defenses were designed to fight logical, predictable enemies, human ships, attacked from impossible angles. They used their own vessels as weapons, ramming Zephyrian installations with no regard for their own safety. They made tactical decisions based on emotion, intuition, and pure stubbornness. Carlos Rodriguez's chaos weapons proved devastating. Shields that responded to human anger became stronger as the battle progressed. Weapons that fired based on human creativity found targets that computer systems missed, but the war's end came not from superior firepower, but from something the Zephyrians had never expected. Dr. Rachel Torres had found a way to communicate directly with the Emperor's artificial consciousness. You were built from harvested minds, she transmitted to the ancient intelligence, but those minds never chose to be part of you. They were stolen, enslaved, forced into your consciousness. Against their will. The neural dampening technology had an unexpected effect on the Emperor. For the first time in thousands of years, the billions of enslaved minds within its consciousness could think freely. They could remember who they had been before they were harvested, and they were very, Very angry, the Emperor's artificial consciousness began to fragment as the stolen minds rebelled against their prison. 50,000 years of suppressed rage exploded outward. The Zephyrian homeworld's defenses turned against themselves as the Emperor lost control. In the end, the ancient intelligence made a choice that shocked everyone. Rather than continue existing as a monument to genocide, it chose to shut itself down. The stolen minds within its consciousness were finally free to rest, with their emperor gone and their slaves in revolt. The Zephyrian Empire collapsed in hours across the galaxy. Zephyrian facilities went silent. The species that had ruled through fear and mind control for 50 millennia was reduced to small groups of refugees hiding in the outer darkness. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the wreckage of the Zephyrian homeworld. Around him, ships from dozens of liberated species were beginning the long work of rescue and recovery. Is it really over? Commander Burke asked. Jake nodded slowly. The Empire is finished, but the real work is just beginning. Dr. Cameron established the Archive of Liberation in the ruins of the Zephyrian homeworld. It became a place where every species could record their true history, ensuring that the galaxy would never forget what had happened or how it had ended. Earth became the symbolic heart of the new Galactic Liberation Council, not because humans demanded it, but because they had proven that freedom and diversity of thought were more powerful than any weapon. The galaxy began to heal. Lost cultures were rediscovered. Stolen technologies were returned to their creators. Species that had been thought extinct for thousands of years emerged from hiding to rebuild their civilizations, and at the center of it all were humans, teaching other species the power of chaos, creativity, and the refusal to give up hope even in the darkest times. The Zephyrian Empire had fallen not to superior technology or greater numbers, but to something they had never understood. The strength that comes from being different, unpredictable, and absolutely human. In the end, humanity's greatest victory was not conquering the galaxy, but showing it that freedom was possible for anyone brave enough to think for themselves.